What's happening this week in Warcraft? Hey, it's Soul, and you can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me where I'm live. First thing you want to do is maybe drop by the trading post after the reset to see what's good and start working towards the cool Forsaken rewards to celebrate summer. Hey, makes total sense, I know. And with everything happening this month, you can be very confident you'll be able to fill out the Traveler's Log with ease. Starting this coming reset and until the week of the 29th, 2 loot-filled events are coming your way, and we're going to talk about both. First is the Greedy Emissary event, where 2 kinds of portal encounters will happen. The first kind takes place in Orgrimmar, Stormwind, and Dorngal, and it happens on top of the hour every hour. A portal will appear, and after a few minutes, out from it will spawn at least 1 treasure goblin. Knock it out for some loot, including a chant at the Inarius' Charger mount, which is a recolor of the Tyrael's Charger, and you'll also get a Hellcaller chest containing goodies, more on that in a bit. Treasure goblins will also spawn in Undermine, but a bit differently. Defeating rares down there can potentially spawn a portal, and 15 minutes after the hour, every hour, so like 1:15, 2:15, and so on, there's a portal storm that can spawn, making more portals and thus more goblins. Throughout all this, you'll also collect these elixirs that, when used on portals, spawn additional goblins as well as add affixes to make this whole Zerg party all the more crazy. So expect most folks being in Dorngal at the top of the hour to slam the goblin portal, then head down to Undermine for the portal storm 15 minutes later, and then maybe spend the rest of their time hunting rares in the zone for more portals and goblins. Of course, those of us familiar with these kinds of events usually know better and are going to steer clear as the event works out whatever bugginess that happens. The way I see it, we're going to have plenty of opportunities to farm this up on our own time. But if you are brave enough to weather it early on, I might suggest instead of Dorngal, maybe head to your faction capital, and using a lower level character should be fine. There's a reasonable chance the area won't be as populated since there's only 1 faction showing up, and lots of people might be sticking around in Dorngal because of the slightly faster travel time down to Undermine. I'd also suggest logging on to different characters, maybe on different realms, in hopes of getting better traffic. The reason you'll be taking on these treasure goblins multiple times is to farm up these Hellcaller shards, which drop from these Hellcaller chests. According to the tooltip, the first 10 chests you loot are guaranteed to drop these shards. Later ones will only have a chance. Reportedly, this credit is applied directly to the warband, meaning the alt army can't be used to get shards faster. That's why it might not matter if you use different characters on different realms even, for the sake of getting these 10 chests. Chests drop from the Treasure Goblin event, and also by doing the typical weekly activities that award the chest with the gear, the bountiful keys, that sort of stuff. So you don't necessarily have to do the Treasure Goblin events with this big sense of urgency, and you can get these Hellcaller shards just doing your normal thing with alts. If you want to collect everything quickly though, you'll probably want to count on being present for as many of these Treasure Goblin events as you can for the month, hard farming shards well beyond what's guaranteed each week. These Hellcaller shards are tradable across the account and are used to buy recolors of the Tier 2 sets we first saw during the WoW Anniversary event last year. Each one costs 40 shards a pop, although it doesn't appear that, like the Anniversary event, the cost will decrease after you buy your first set, so be prepared to farm and spend. Overall, the flow of the event is very simple though. You just show up, you crush treasure goblins, you spend currency, and you repeat. It seems easy enough to solo, even if you're on at weird times of the day, and can be sort of hard farmed depending on how often you get shards after the first 10 chests. The other event, the Collector's Bounty, is huge for transmog and mount farmers who've been getting slapped around by Lady Luck. According to their announcement, during the month, transmog drop chances in pre-Dragonflight raids and dungeons are doubled, which I admit is kind of vague. Like, it might mean double the loot will drop, it might mean we're twice as likely to see transmog drops versus the non-transmog drops, like, jewelry, trinkets, and Legion relics, but the point is we get more, and I'm good with that. Also, the following items you see on screen have had their drop rates increased by up to 10 times, one by 25 times. This includes all mounts from pre-Dragonflight Legacy raids and dungeons, which is huge for mount hunters. I've been wanting to get that one Red Inferno with the toilet seat collar, you know what I mean? So with this event in mind, I have a handful of tips to offer for the collectors out there. There are 2 add-ons I suggest you pick up: Autolooter and Vendor. Autolooter can be configured to loot whatever you want and leave the rest behind, which makes it very useful for those who tend to have full bags all the time and maybe don't have easy access to a vendor or a mailbox to offload items. What I do is configure the add-on to ignore looting anything that's bind on pickup. So when I'm going around killing everything, I'm looting the gold, the grays, the BOEs, and other resources I might be able to sell on the auction house, or maybe save, just in case it's useful for player housing in a few months. But I do leave the epic gear behind, because that stuff is just going to go into my mailbox once I leave the instance. And then later I go to my mailbox and let all that purple stuff flood on in. The add-on vendor is used to auto-sell all the crap. You can configure it to sell things under a certain item level, namely all the legacy stuff that's coming in the mailbox. I also use it to set up a destroy list of pets and other stuff I know won't sell, and then while unloading the mailbox of all these purples we skipped, hitting up a vendor will clear everything we just took out. A few more clicks will destroy the rest. It makes the inventory management part of this much easier, limited to the end of my gaming for the day. There are also websites that serve as great tools for your collection planning. SimpleArmory.com has a very neat tool for mount collecting. Just go to the website and plug in one of your character's information. Click on Collectible, and then Mounts, and then check the box that says Show Planner. It'll straight up give you directions on where to go to collect a good number of mounts from raids and dungeons. What a coincidence. And just keep in mind again, this bonus only goes up to Shadowlands since Dragonflight isn't technically a legacy loot expansion, at least not yet. Data for Azeroth is also an awesome site to help track what transmog you're missing. Once again, plug in your information, and this time go to Appearances. The filters up top here are very powerful, and you can use multiple filters to help you zero in on what you're missing. By default, it tracks your entire account, which is probably overwhelming, but the filters are numerous. You can make it include only showing transmog that drops, and your armor type, and you can have it target a specific slot, and you can group by expansion for some easy organization. So with this, at a glance, you can create your own path to navigating all of WoW in search of all your favorite things. There are other strats you can employ, partially thanks to all these leveling events helping our alt along. With Warband unlocks in mind, why go through all the fancy tricks of speedy travel and teleports when you could just have multiple alts parked at your favorite places to farm? Remember, this event applies to Shadowlands and older raids, so you want to take your strongest characters to the toughest raids and dungeons, and then the fastest characters to the largest of these raids and dungeons. And as your checklist of stuff to get shortens, you can start consolidating your alts to a few places for faster farming. But you also want to be prepared to hit the instance cap of 10 instances run per hour, unless Blizzard temporarily eases the restriction for this event. And there are some workarounds to this, like for example, the cap is server specific, so if you happen to hit the cap pretty fast, you just switch to a character on a different server for a while, or maybe do some Hellcaller shard farming. A smaller tip for preserving your mental health, I recommend setting very focused goals during this event. For example, paying attention to the bullet points here. I happen to be using Data for Azeroth to look for all the plate helmets that drop from raids and dungeons. Running all of these is bound to get me boatloads of other stuff, just like how folks hunting for all the mounts are going to get all sorts of goodies. Just don't forget to loot and empty out your bags before moving on to the next dungeon or switching to another character, and good luck. Feel free to share any additional tips you have so we can help each other out. That ain't all that's going on this week. We have another item level upgrade for our belt. And here's something cool to point out. It appears that all the belt upgrade quests include the loot box with champion gear, making this a great first stop for freshly leveled alts who can complete these quests clearing tier 1 delves. Keep in mind, as we move on to Season 3, there's a very good chance that, and well, this isn't verified yet, but there's a chance the overcharged delve tree will go away. Again, this isn't confirmed 100%, but with that in mind, it might be a good idea to consider filling out the tree before the season ends, so you can score the mount in case it's no longer available. Turbulent timelines continue, and this time we're returning to the Burning Crusade after only a short break. If you can snake your way into the Black Temple raid, that's going to mean 2 pieces of hero gear, which, hey, that ain't that bad. The Galagio Rewards Club hits Renown 19 this week, and with it, the final throughput buff, taking us to a massive 18% increased damage and healing. Since last week, we can now also buy our 3 desired pieces of gear with puzzling cartel chips as long as you complete them quests, so make your choice wisely and we'll see how long that lasts into Season 3. Dastardly Duos enters its 5th week with seemingly no rewards, otherwise your goal is to reach a high enough score for an achievement. Arena Skirmish bonuses are in effect this week. Deep 6 is the Brawl, and over in Mythic Plus World, it's a Fortified Tyrannical week, and I'm not even going to trust the websites anymore. Like, I'm done with that. We're just going to keep getting the fixes wrong, just do your best, and we'll leave it at that. That about wraps up what's happening this week, but stay tuned right here in case more news breaks. I'm crossing my fingers for the thing I always want to hear about, I'm just not saying what it is in case I jinx it. And I just did. Please like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.